Yo, what's up everyone? So we've got another image sent in, one sent in by Luke All here, and we're going to be working with this sick image right here, trying to recreate what's a pretty unique looking style. So I was on the phone to Luke. I wanted to hear a bit more about what he does because I follow him over on Instagram, and he was explaining to me how creatives have a real opportunity in e-commerce these days because creatives have the ability to create aesthetic looking websites, and that's what he's done for himself. He's been able to create a really nice income off e-commerce that has allowed him to travel the world. So he was saying hit him up in the DMs if you're interested, and yeah, he loves collaborating with people all the time. So I'll be putting his links down in the description if you're interested in that. Go down there and let's get into Lightroom, see if we can create something like this one here. Okay, let's bring up exposure a tad, contrast down a bit because I'm going to do a lot of contrast with the curves. Highlights, let's just roughly do a few of these. And we definitely want a lot of clarity in this one. Bring it right up. Right, so I will do the curves now. Okay, so we've got the curves done, and you might think there's way too much blacks. We need to add more of a fade or take out some, or bring up the blacks up here. But I'm also looking at the rest of the image. So I'm looking up here as well, and I think we just have to come in with filters and brushes to brighten the bottom because our contrast and exposure looks pretty good in the middle here. So, and I think it's much more likely that he's brightened the image down here than it is the rest of the image along in these bits here. Okay, so we have, and one thing about the curves, most people will just use curves that are in their preset and then just slightly change them. They don't really start from scratch. And I sort of do that every video just to show you guys. But yeah, start with some curves you have from your presets that you real like, and then just run with those for a while. And I think we look okay up here. Might just adjust a few things. Highlights can come down. Shadows come up a bit. Okay, I think that looks good. So these here mean exactly what they say they mean. It just might be hard to tell the difference when you're learning, but after a while you'll get that the shadows are the shadows and the blacks are the darkest parts, but they do kind of cross over and affect each other. But yeah, the whites, brightest areas, highlights, not the brightest areas, but the highlights. And the highlights controls a lot of detail, so I very, very often bring it down. That's how you get a lot of detail. Say back there now, the highlights can really bring back a lot of detail in the brighter areas, which the whites doesn't too much. Alright, so we'll move on. We've got a bit of a green tint to our image, so we want to get it to more of a purpley blue, and we'll start by doing that with split toning, and then we'll maybe do a filter to brighten things up. Okay, so quite a bit of purple in the shadows really takes out that green tint. We're a bit closer to what we want. Sort of white balances it a bit. And if you just look real closely in these sort of dark areas, I think you can see a bit of the purple in there. So we'll come down and we'll do. So this is obviously an orange and teal color grade. But it's quite dark as well, quite dark, soft contrast, but a lot of shadows and stuff like that. But I think colors, it's the classic orange and teal by shifting this slider. We'll just keep it there for now. Come back up. And we will maybe try to do some filters to brighten up our subjects. So grab a filter and we'll drag it down over our subjects. And what we'll do, we'll just bring up the blacks. Sweet, and that just really brings out our subjects there. And I've gone ahead and made another one here because I think there's a lot more shadow coming in from this direction, maybe. So we'll go ahead with this quickly. Drop the exposure. Okay, it's looking good. Let's just. Okay, we have our subjects here, and it's a little bright up top here, and once we brighten these guys out, this is going to be very distracting. Well, I'll do that after. We'll brighten these guys up first, and then we'll worry about that, because then you might understand what I mean. So we want to bring out our subjects, so we want brush, and then just brush completely over them. Okay, and you can tidy up your brush by clicking the erase and then just erasing what you've done. If you spill over your edges, you can erase them there. So what we want to do is let's try bring up the exposure. So skin tones, it's a good idea to keep your contrast up sometimes. It's just looking at the brighter areas, how much they pop. Let's chuck up the shadows. Take down those blacks. And they might look a little too bright, but we haven't played with our colors yet. I'm probably going to end up bringing down the luminance of our skin tones because we have such deep looking skin tones. So I'll just do that now. It might make a bit more sense to you guys. because otherwise those skin tones look just too bright. So we're dropping the reds down as well. Right. Where are we up to? We will do some HSL now and try to get our colors even closer. Right. Let's start with some oranges. Not too far off. Touch more on the red side. The reds. Go towards an orange. So you can see in the back, in his one, we've got those trees that look like yellows. They go much more of an orange. So let's shift. That's the oranges. Shift the yellows towards orange. But I won't go all the way because you can see we still keep some greens back there. So I'll go about there. And I want those greens to show out even more, so I might shift them towards the blues, because then they go a true green. The yellows warmed up our greens a bit too much, but if you cool off your greens, they end up a bit more of a normal green. Right, so aquas, we really need to get these more purpler tones, these deeper blues. So let's shift them this direction. And then these blues, maybe a lighter blue. It can be tricky if you got your saturation too high, so maybe bring that down first, so it's close. And then luminance will play a big role in this as well. So looks like we want some deepish blues, but we want that real nice brightness, especially in the brighter areas. So I'm thinking aquas come up a lot, get that real shine to the water. Alright, so I'll mess around with a few other colours. Saturation, reds down a tad. We'll bring the oranges up. Yellows. So you can see in the back here how those greens, they go quite a grey or just look really desaturated. So we'll drop them. And by dropping the yellows, it makes your skin tones pop out a lot as well, because yellow is such a close color to orange. If you take out the yellow, it makes the oranges pop that much more, makes your skin pop out a lot. And then I just want to keep some greens back there, so bring it up quite a bit. Because by desaturating the yellows, you've probably desaturated a lot of your greens. Might pull it back just a bit though. I'll keep it up there for now. Might come back to that. We've done our blues, so we just want to drop our purples and magentas just roughly in line with everything else. Now luminance, so the deepness, we've done a few of these already. So back there, might just put a little bit of brightness. The greens. Just a tiny pop to these colors maybe. And we look pretty good. So what I was talking about before is making your subjects the main part of the image, making them pop a bit more. So what I want to do is grab a filter up here and just drag it over this top bit here. Just size it up. And what I want to do is drop the saturation. And I might drop the shadows as well. See how that looks. And there's another thing I want to get rid of with a brush. So if I get a brush, I just want to paint over all these bits of green that are in the water. We want to get rid of those. So just grab a brush. I'm just going to paint over all of them. Okay, so what you want to do is just drop the saturation. And what you can also do is just put cool tones in there, and that should get rid of them. As just dropping the saturation might look a little unnatural. Just leave it there. Okay. Right. I might just back off on the shadows up here. And that looks about it. And yeah, that's about it, guys. I might just drop those greens again, as I think there's a bit more of a silver look to those greens back there, with desaturation down a bit, maybe even luminance as well. Put a touch of dehaze in there to get just a bit more brightness. Increase the whites a bit because I want it to be a bit brighter, as you can see in these areas, especially on the blues up here in the middle here and along here. So I might just bring the whites up a bit. Need the blues up a little. And then I'm going to come back up here. I want it a bit brighter in these highlights here. But I don't move this one here because that affects too large of an area and brings out the detail. So a better way to bring the brightness of these areas up is just grab the highlights here. And it's going to affect a smaller area and just give us what we want. Okay, that looks good. We'll come down and we will drop the saturation of the skin tones a bit. And I just want to take out a little bit of purple to the image. So I'm just going to shift the highlights away from the blues and the purples a little more over to the lighter blues. And that's just going to mean there's less purple in the image now. So I think about there just a tiny bit. That looks pretty good. And I'll just leave it there, guys. So make sure you go give him a follow down in the description. All of his links to all of his content will be down there. And don't pay too much attention to the sharpness of these images because this is a screenshot off Instagram. And yeah, comment people who have great images on Instagram but don't have too many followers. That way I can reach out to them. They'll want to do a collaboration and they will send in one of their photos for me to do a tutorial on. So really helps if you guys do that. I go through all the comments and then go reach out to them all. And yeah, if you guys are getting value from these tutorials, check out the presets. There's a ton of value. I'm currently giving away all my presets in one pack. So all the best ones I've gathered. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Catch you in the next one. Cheers.